From Heaven Blues Channel, Paranormal, Book 20, Part 4, Tarot Cards. Translated from the writings of Dr. Ahmed Khalid Tawfiq, whose books in English you will only find here. So please take a second to hit subscribe for more upcoming content. The third tale, Voodoo, starring Harry Sheldon. The necromancer rips up dead bodies to know their secrets. As for the witch of the blood doll, she rips up living bodies to learn from them. Name, Harry Sheldon. Age, 36. Occupation, computer expert. Residency, Florida. Status, married with one child. Hobbies, like every true American, Harry is interested in traveling and seeing new things. He has a special interest in the peoples and cultures of the Caribbean islands. He is also keen on photography. Personal characteristics? Harry Sheldon is a brave, civilized human, though he might be to a certain extent impulsive, and he is the best friend of Dr. Refaat Ismael. We have encountered him twice before, in the Legend of the Living Dead and in the Legend of the Blue Flame, and we came to know more of his characteristics, and will add here that he, like Refaat, creates problems for himself wherever he goes. Finally, he is a rather loyal husband and a good father. Mrs. Mazursky leaned over to Mary, whispered something in her ear, then looked at her watch with anxiety. Dr. Lucifer asked her, while placing the cards on the table without lifting his eyes to her, "Is something bothering the lady? Are you late?" The woman responded with reverence, "Actually, yes, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, and I wanted to—" Lucifer interjected, "But we haven't read the young lady's tarot yet. I promise you this story will not be long, and then we will read the girl's tarot. Let's see, what have we here? Ah, the Magician's card, then the Empress card, then the Lover's card, and then the Castle, then the card of Death, and nothing more." The 13th card with this heinous drawing shone in the green light. I leaned over to Colby, whispering, "This man only uses the 22 cards of the big secret, so why doesn't he use the rest?" Colby replied, "In some places on Earth, including Hungary, they only use the big secret cards." "And what are the cards of the small secret?" I asked. "There are 4 kinds. The swords type, which has 14 cards and ends with the card depicting a king, then a queen, and then a knight. Then there's the cane type cards, which have the same order, then the cup cards, then the dirhams type. And these types of cards cover matters of health, work, luck, and money. As for the king, it symbolizes—" "No side conversations, Colby," echoed Clarton's metallic voice, ordering us to pay attention to what the big conman was going to say. And so we were silent. Staring at Harry, Dr. Lucifer then said, "You have a warrior's heart. Your style is to get angry first and then think. And this is the nature of the honorable man who holds no grudges. But you have a terrible story, which I tell you now without delay." Someone had robbed Harry's house. That is what the man realized when he returned with his wife Linda and their handsome young son Jimmy. The front door was broken, and the man didn't need much smarts to realize what had happened while he and his family were attending a wedding. He rushed in, entering through the broken door, only to find traces of someone having searched every corner of his home. His safe was open. Someone had torched the lock using oxyacetylene in order to steal the contents. And what a stupid thief he was. Harry was never rich. There was only $200 in the safe, along with some computer-printed pie graphs he had prepped for an innovative banking system. Actually, the reality was that Harry had inherited the safe from his father, and just like his dad was never able to put something worthy within it, so did Harry, who had inherited meager means from his dad. And that's why he was surprised that someone would rob his safe containing practically nothing. He phoned the police. The police came, took a few fingerprints, and took a few pictures of the door, then went back to their station without much hope of finding the thief. As Harry and Linda sat next morning checking for the missing contents of the safe, Harry remembered something valuable was missing from inside it. How could he have forgotten this thing? He did not tell Linda that he had remembered what happened. He didn't tell her about the only missing thing from the safe. But he remembers now. Drums, sweaty, dancing bodies, skulls with fire coming from their eye sockets. Codica, Codica. The living dead spread their power over this part of Jamaica. And then the party, this devilish, ominous atmosphere. And there behind the tree he hides with Dr. Refaat, watching what is happening and recording it all by video. And there stood the pretty witch, burning dolls. And which dolls? Refaat is the one who noticed the strong resemblance between the doll and Linda, Harry's wife. And why not? Didn't a woman attack Linda in the market and steal some of her blonde hair this morning? Yes, Harry remembers Refaat's desperate maneuver, which, in spite of everything, was successful in stealing the doll and escaping. And Harry dared not believe what Refaat had told him about this silly fetish, the homemade doll made to look like someone, which supposedly transmits harm from the doll to the person. But he started to believe him, and when he saw what happened to Linda when little Jimmy played with the limbs of the doll resembling her, he stopped even doubting the whole matter, and was now convinced that there are secrets in this universe about which no human even knows the outer layer. When they returned from Jamaica, he had planned to hide this doll forever. He did not dare bury or drown or burn it, of course, for that would mean destroying Linda forever. Therefore he put it in a plastic bag, and stuffed this bag into a larger paper bag, then put the latter in the safe. And since that day he had forgotten everything about the fetish and his miserable trip to Jamaica and the bad omen, Refaat Ismael. But today he remembers, and knows there is a grave danger threatening Linda. Take care in dealing with it, for everything that happens to the doll will happen to her. Imagine a mouse taking a tiny bite from it, or a cigarette ash falling onto it. From Mother Marcia, from Legend of the Living Dead, page 88. And now you can imagine what will happen. The thief will go back to his home, prep himself a drink, light up an awful-smelling cigarette. After all, alcohol and cigarettes are the thief's daily bread. Then sits down on his bed cross-legged, and while drooling he starts counting the dollars, and feels indescribable dashed hopes. But with hope jumping in his chest, he reaches for the paper bag and rips it open, then tears open the plastic bag inside it to find this ugly blonde doll. So it is natural to guess that he will go mad. He will rip the limbs off the doll, or throw it in the toilet, or put it in a lit oven to reduce it to a pile of charcoal. What would happen to Linda then? Since Harry was of the hot-blooded, impulsive type, he did not wait for a moment. Time is running, and a whole day had passed since the robbery. Harry does not know the reason the thief waited all this time, but he would not wait any longer. He phoned an old friend, Gabriel, son of Mother Marcia, the Jamaican witch. Really? Coincidentally, Gabriel had been in Florida for 2 months, looking to make some extra money. He worked as a waiter in a nightclub in order to raise his income. And by the way, immigrants from the Caribbean are a considerable number within the U.S., and they call them spics, which is a word that carries a tone of insult which only Americans understand. Harry said into the phone, "I'd like to speak to Gabriel." He heard an accented voice asking, "Who wants him? You a cop?" "No, I'm a friend." The voice echoed, "Gabriel, there's a man who calls himself your friend." Then Gabriel's voice, "Hello?" "Gabriel, I'm Harry Sheldon. I need your help, man." And to the man he told the whole story. Gabriel is no stranger to such situations. Actually, he was raised in the bosom of black magic, if that phrase applies. And it is hard to have a voodoo witch for a mother, as you know. "You're in trouble, Mr. Sheldon," Gabriel said. "This doll is truly dangerous, and I think you should come to me so we can go to my mother." "And is she here?" asked Harry. "Sure is. She loves the U.S. and would not have agreed for me to leave her alone in Kingston. Here is my address. See you there in an hour." They met at the fixed time, and from the first look Harry realized that the old witch had turned her humble home in this neighborhood into a replica of her home in Jamaica. The animal skins hanging on the wall, the tacky furniture, and the lit cigar in her hand. It even occurred to Harry that the suffocating foul smell followed her. The woman had gotten even older, but her eyes still gleamed, and her nails grew even longer. She shook Harry's hand, saying in her high-pitched voice, "Hey, you're here, Blondie. And where is your talkative, bald, chain-smoking friend? Isn't he still alive, at least? Sit down. Ah, I see you are still a hasty fool. Why didn't you give me that doll, to strip it of its magic? But don't worry, Mother Marcia knows, eh? Knows everything. Why don't you sit?" Seating himself on the edge of a decaying couch, Harry said, I see, my lady, that your energy has not diminished." She replied, "That's true, but just so you know, Mother Marcia does nothing without a price." "You mean money?" She laughed her shrill laughter, which sounded like a squeaky door, saying, "Of course not. Apparently you don't know Mother Marcia yet." Here I interrupted the talk. I couldn't stay silent any longer. Surprised, I asked Harry, "Harry, did this really happen, or is Dr. Lucifer predicting this for you?" Mysteriously, the man smiled and looked at Lucifer. "Harry, you have to tell me," I went on, insisting. So Harry, with a smile still on his lips, looked at me. He was bent on smiling, like one who pretends to be confident, though I had noticed something clearly wrong with his empty mask. Scratching his head, he mumbled, "Actually, this happened a month ago, and I had totally forgotten about it. But I think Dr. Lucifer here knows what he is talking about." For the first time since the game had started, I started getting really worried. I reached for a cigarette and lit it, ignoring the silent warnings in the eyes of Colby and Clarton, the homeowner. Surely Lucifer was able to know about Mrs. Mazursky's story from Mary, her daughter's friend, and maybe from Dr. Hendricks, her shrink. Was that his name? And Lucifer also could have known Mill's story, for perhaps the latter had told someone about it. But how? I'm about to go mad here. How could he know something about Harry? I knew Harry had not told anyone about the story of the doll, and Harry had not left me since we came to this house. Even I had never heard the story. I looked through the clouds of smoke into Lucifer's face, while his strong, piercing eyes scanned our own faces, self-confidence in human form. Occasionally he would lean over to Mr. Clarton, our host, and exchange a few whispered words, and then his deep voice echoed, saying, "No need for any more interruptions. And you, Mr. Colby, would you please go release yourself instead of sitting here like a jumping flea?" Grateful, Colby jumped to his feet and left the den in a rush, while the incense smoke mixed with my cigarette smoke. And from somewhere came a mutilated Eastern music used by Westerners who did not understand quarter tones. Then the self-confident voice continued. "Mother Marcia did an awesome job." Awesome job? If we can call it that, her chanting all these spells, and all the incense she had burned, and all the feverish twirling around Linda's sock which Harry had stolen for her as a personal item. She then spilled some water on the fire she had lit in the sock. Suffocating smoke came from the polyester sock. She endlessly repeated sentences with saliva flying from her mouth. And when she finally finished, she stretched a clawed hand to Harry, asking him to wipe his face with the ashes and saying, "With this, we can say that we have isolated the blonde woman from her doll. And now we're safe. So I can go home now?" "Sure," she said, "but don't forget what I told you. I said I would only do this for a price. And I am ready to pay it without delay." Drying her hands from the water and smiling in confidence, she said, "I want a few drops of your blood." "Do you really mean that?" Harry asked in shock, not knowing how to respond. "Mother Marcia does not joke around, Blondie." He asked her, looking at Gabriel, searching for escape. "Can I know why?" "Well, I said that is my fee, and you don't get to ask. But trust that Mother Marcia means you no harm. Let's just say she desperately needs a white, courageous young man's blood for the voodoo." Harry kept his demeanor as a skeptic and a courageous man, so he stretched his hand to Mother Marcia with a confident smile. The woman smiled in content, brought out a glass and a knife, then grabbed Harry's open palm and made a small superficial cut and let the blood drip into the glass. "There, we're all done." She handed him a piece of linen which had been dipped in one of her special oils and ordered him to hold it on the wound for some time, then aimed for him to leave. She said, "Things will be fine with Linda." So he had nothing to worry about. Dr. Lucifer said, "And like that, we can say that this is what happened to our friend Harry about a month or so ago. And no doubt he had forgotten the whole thing already. But I reminded him of it, for he had made a big mistake. A person does not give their blood to a voodoo witch and then leave. True, you know her. True, she is an old friend. True, she saved your life from the zombies long ago. But you were, truth be told, not careful, for a person cannot trust a witch. These women flip like the sea itself, and have endless devilish games. My advice to you is this. Is this woman and her son still in the U.S.? Can you get in touch with them?" Indecisive, Harry said, "Yes, but—" Lucifer interrupted, saying, "Because you will invite Gabriel for a drink, then take the cup containing his fingerprints to the police. And then it becomes clear to you that the thief who robbed your safe is Gabriel himself." I exchanged a questioning look with Harry, then asked, "And why would Gabriel do that?" "Because he wanted you to come to him and his mom with your free will to ask for help, which you did, and paid the price with your blood that you gave to them of your free will, without external pressure. Do you understand?" "Definitely not," Harry said miserably. Gesturing with his hand to request some more coffee, Lucifer said, "Have you not asked yourself why someone would rob your safe in particular and go through all this effort though you were never known to be rich your whole life? The matter is clear, no doubt about it. He wanted something else from the safe other than money, and that thing is the doll." "And why would he want it? And why would they want my blood?" came Harry's response. "Because there is a magic that voodoo witches love, which is the matter of the blood doll. Make a fetisha for a human like Linda, and place on it a few drops of the blood of her beloved, in this case you, and then submerge the doll in swamp water for 3 days. Then bury it in the sand for a month, and the result is, the owner of the fetish disappears totally, while all their characteristics and virtues go into the witch." "You mean this is some kind of necromancy art?" "No," came Lucifer's reply. "The necromancer rips up dead bodies to know their secrets. As for the witch of the blood doll, she rips up living bodies to learn from them." Harry was wondrous. And why would Mother Marcia want this? "Because she wants to become a blonde American. It's very logical, especially since she came to America and found herself and her son below the poverty line. She had lost all her authority and status, and she wishes to be a white American like all the others. If only she weren't a spick." Harry sighed, looked at the ominous cards on the table, and asked, "If what you say is true, why didn't any of this happen up until now?" 3 days and a month, said Lucifer. "This is the period needed for the disappearance to happen. And you gave the woman your blood 1 month ago, which means the transformation may take place at any second." He then sipped from his cup and continued, "You must get the doll back, whatever it takes, or else." And he continued explaining the story to Harry. "One day you will go back home, Mr. Sheldon, absent-minded, for you're totally helpless in getting the doll back. and you can't find Gabriel anywhere. And when you went to Mother Marcia's, you did not find her. At this point, you'll think about how dangerous it is to ignore this matter. Why not just ignore it? The whole thing is just words that Dr. Lucifer said and not necessarily the truth. Why couldn't the latter be just a con man? And you will call Linda, "Linda, darling, I'm home," and you won't find her. You'll tell yourself she must be in the kitchen. You go there and also don't find her. Did she go out? Is she visiting the neighbors? And where did that little devil Jimmy go? You won't believe what happened until you see the bloodstains on the carpet outside the bedroom. You will go in, and you'll see all this horror on the floor, on the bed, on the walls, and her palm print in blood. Miserable, she couldn't understand what was happening to her. But the first thing to get your attention in the calm after this first storm, the first thing you'll immediately notice is the small, black, half-burnt sock wrapped around her neck, the sock you gave the voodoo witch a month ago. And next to the sock, you'll find the familiar-looking linen with your own blood on it. For Mother Marcia is an honest woman, the likes of which is rare to find in this era. A woman who doesn't forget to return what she borrows. The story ended, and I noticed Harry pretending to act unshaken, but that only made it worse. And who dares blame him? I placed my hand on his arm and whispered, "This is speculation on the unknown, Harry, so don't worry. What would make Mother Marcia do this? I think this woman is above playing a trivial game to make herself white." Intensely, Harry said, "Well, I don't know, but the story has filled me with worry. I have to go to the woman and try to get the doll back from her, even if it costs me breaking her neck." I answered, "That is, if she really took it." Here Dr. Lucifer's voice echoed, saying slowly, "And now, who's next? Your company fills me with joy." I said in a steady voice, "Don't you find it strange for all of us to be jinxed to this extent and then gathered in one place?" "Nothing strange about it," said Lucifer while shuffling the cards. "For those who came here are driven by curiosity, which means they're keen on the paranormal. And among them is the one who came asking for advice, which means they are currently in a bind. And both kinds can see the dark side of the moon. And now, who's next? Ah, the little lady. She wants to leave with her friend, Mrs. Mazursky. Will you take the cards and shuffle them for me, young lady?" She did so while shaking, the cards even falling from her hands a few times. Her angelic, transparent face reflected the harshest signs of horror, and I said to myself in surprise, "Wonder what scary secret this fragile girl like Snow White hides in her chest." Here Dr. Lucifer begins to speak. Come, let's listen to him. End of Part 4. To be continued. To hear the next story, don't forget to hit subscribe. This translation is not easy, and we need and appreciate your encouragement and support.